Oh boy. I'm a pretty big Saw fan. I mean, outside of the original, I've seen them all in theaters and love them all for a variety of reasons. They are just something that just gels with me. Okay, maybe not Saw 3D, but 7 out of 8 isn't bad. I even don't mind Jigsaw, which is also a controversial opinion. So, hearing that Chris Rock came to producers about an idea for a new Saw film was definitely intriguing, especially since this wasn't a Chris Rock that was struggling. Nope, this was a Chris Rock at the top of his game. While he's starring in critically revered shows like Fargo and releasing comedy specials, this isn't some guy that's like just desperate. I will do a last ditch effort in the horror genre to get my star back. Nope, that's not it here. He's just a big fan of the series and he wanted to make a Saw movie, which is honestly really cool. And also, don't worry, I'll talk spoilers at the end, and I'll make sure to tag them, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, just stop watching there. But the cast is really where the uniqueness ends. Because, yes, you have Chris Rock and Sam Jackson and Max Minghella, who are all fantastic actors, not people that you would expect to see in a film like this. So that was very cool, and again, very, very unique. But the movie itself is pretty generic, and it often doesn't even feel like a Saw movie. But this is kind of both a critique and a compliment. The Saw series has a very established style, and you could argue that it kind of falls under the music video aesthetic with shaking camera and jerky transitions and rapid cuts, and again, it's very music video-y. And this doesn't really do that. The whole production feels a lot more Hollywood than the franchise has in the past. They kind of toyed with this a little bit in Jigsaw, but in here it fully feels like a whole different franchise, which I liked. But adding to this confusion is the fact that it's directed by series mainstay Darren Lynn Bousman. And this is one thing that I find really fascinating with Bousman in general, because I think his Saw movies, you can really see him grow, but then you can also see him regress. So now seeing him grow again is really nice, because I think that the second movie has a lot of issues, and it's just not... He's clearly just trying to figure things out, and I didn't used to have this opinion, but I think Saw 3 is his absolute gem, and that's where he just really understands what works. And by the time he does 4, it just kind of goes a little too far and then starts going into parody, where it's like, oh, it seems like he's not doing this for anything other than, oh, this feels like Saw. But it seems like here he's back to just like, okay, I'm taking what I've learned and I want to create a great story out of it. Great and interesting time. And again, I'm not going to say that this is like the most interesting story of all time, but it's a lot more satisfying watching Jigsaw victims that are dirty cops, especially in the era that we're in, than what we were getting in the series prior, where it's like, oh, you're a white supremacist who was a dickhead to a bunch of people. Now you're gonna have to tear your skin off to survive. Or, oh, you cheated your taxes. Then you need to cut your own arm off to survive. There's just a lot of really silly stuff. It's like, are these people really deserving of these things? But in this movie, not once am I like, oh my god, these people are so innocent. No, all of these people are assholes. So that was quite nice. And they're all really dickhead cops. So that was, yet again, just very satisfying, because usually you don't see karma in these situations. Usually these cops get off scot-free. So it is nice. It's just to see this. Which wasn't something that I was expecting. I didn't think this would be a cathartic experience, but it kind of was. And it may sound like I didn't like the aesthetic of the movie, but honestly, it's one of my favorite things about it. It at least makes the film feel very unique. But that's pretty much the only thing that makes the film feel unique. The twist is something that is easy to figure out right away. Like, I was literally telling my buddy, oh, that's the bad guy. Oh, that's definitely the bad guy. And even when the twist is finally revealed, it isn't done in that, like, oh my god way that we're used to getting from Saw, where the Charlie Clouser music comes up, these shocked expressions as the characters are figuring out as we do. Like, there's none of that. It's just that part is disappointing, because I know that for me personally, that is the whole reason I go to a Saw movie. Sure, some people go for the traps. They want to see exactly what people will do for survival. But for me, it's always the twist. It's the reason that I left Jigsaw actually feeling somewhat pleased. I mean, yeah, in retrospect, it's like, oh God. But at the time, it was like, oh, well, it was a cool twist. Yeah, the twist sucks when you look at it like upon further reflection, but that's also just a miscast issue. But we need to get into the spoilers. Okay, so what the fuck is in the plan for this series? You cast Max Minghella in the movie, and then you make him the fucking killer. I'm sorry, but Max Minghella has better things to be doing than coming back for annual Saw entries. Which kind of makes me think this movie is more just a one-off than an actual reboot of the series, which is honestly kind of refreshing, because after Jigsaw failed to do that, I'm kind of glad that they didn't just immediately try and do it again. And honestly, I mean, Spiral did well enough, and Rock seemed to enjoy making the movie, that I wonder if we'll actually get a continuation of this story, because I'd be pretty curious about that. Sure, Sam Jackson's dead, but I mean, we've seen in the past, you can just do flashbacks, and especially given the relationship between him and Rock's character. I mean, obviously, like the father-son thing, but them just having a strained relationship in general. You can absolutely do flashbacks and his connections with other people, because obviously he was very corrupt. So there's still a lot to do with that. And obviously you have Chris Rock wanting to hunt down Max Minghella's character. So there is absolutely some place where they can go with this. But do Chris Rock and Max Minghella want to do that? I mean, I don't know. I was definitely under the impression that this was just going to be a one-off, and so I'm very curious as to where this is going to go, because it was just different than anything that I expected, and I'm more curious about what this sequel could potentially be than I was curious when the movie was even announced. So we'll see if anything happens with this. I don't know. Well, I don't know. But I will say that this movie was good enough that it caused me to then watch the rest of the series backwards. Yes, I don't know why. I watched Spiral and was like, oh, I kind of really want to watch Jigsaw now, because I just haven't watched that one in a long time. And watched that, and I was like, oh, well, maybe I should rewatch the series. It's like, well, I'm already going backwards, and so I've just continued that. And as of recording right now, I just have the first one to do. And honestly, if you're a fan of the Saw series and you haven't watched it backwards, I very much recommend it, because it's just a different way of viewing them. Because it's not about the twists, it's just about how the world is developing, and you're able to see it in a different way when it's going backwards like that. Like, I didn't even realize that the reporter from 6 is actually in 5, and things like that. Just very interesting. But that's really all. I saw a crap ton of horror movies recently, between The Conjuring, Devil Made Me Do It, and A Quiet Place Part 2. So I might end up doing another review soon. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, take it easy.